Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. So, I recently traveled to New Orleans for the first time in mid-October, and this video is in no way like a play-by-play recap of my trip. If y'all are interested in that, I did some variation of that on my TikTok, so y'all can go check that out. This video was more so looking at it from the angle of my trip there being like a spiritual vision quest, and I just kind of want to unpack those themes with you all. And yeah, so before we even get into the actual trip, I gotta say that before I went to New Orleans, New Orleans came to me. So when I was a kid, I remember when I first was able to read independently, like meaning that I could choose like what kind of books I wanted to read, and they were usually like a little more, elaborate, complex than regular children's book. You know, that age, like fourth grade. I think like a lot of people started reading like those Harry Potter books in like fourth grade or whatever. So one of the very first books that I was super interested in as a kid was this book about haunted New Orleans. And this was one of the first of so many times. I wouldn't say the first, but this was one of the instances out of a lot of instances where my parents was like, "What is this girl on? Like, what interest does she have in ghosts and spirits?" And that played out, like I said, a lot throughout my childhood in general. But that was definitely one of those moments where they was like, um, "She's kind of dark." So I'll say all that to say I was always somewhat interested in the occult. And it started for real, from what I can remember when I was like a kid, like 5 years old. We had a desktop, and I remember literally sitting for hours looking at pictures of the planets. Going through every single one of them and just being fascinated by what I saw, and that just being like the most fun activity I could do as a kid. Again, I'm sure my parents was like, "What is she on?" But yeah, so I always had an interest in the occult, celestial beings, celestial energy, divination. I've always been interested in divination. Um, yeah, it's anything like that. So I just thought it was interesting that that was something I took to really early on as well, like an interest in New Orleans and the spirits that it had there and just the energy of New Orleans. So, fast forward, we go to December of 2022, so last year. I start having these dreams, like crazy dreams, where I'm like, it means something. I know it does, but I'm like, how literal is this? What is the true meaning? So, as many of y'all know, I lost my mother to breast cancer in 2017. And even in her passing, I found that we have almost connected more spiritually now that she's on the other side. And I dream about her almost nightly. Like, if it's not nightly, it's every other night. And I can honestly say that the time period, like December 2022, like I'm saying, that was when it kind of really kicked off to where she was just prominent in my dreams. Like there's rarely a dream that doesn't feature her. But it kind of started around that time when I was having these like really I'm just gonna tell y'all about them. So the first dream was me and her walking up the street from my childhood. My grandma had a daycare on this street, so I was like always on that side of town. And I remember always noticing as a kid the ironwork, the symbols engraved on people's like screen door, like metal screen doors. I would always like associate that with that street and my grandma's daycare and stuff like that. And in the dream, I'm literally pointing this out to her. I'm like, look at the stores. Mom, did you see these stores? And she's kind of like brushing me off, like, you know how like adults do, like when they've already seen something, they're like, okay, a little jamming, like, okay. And I'm like, Mom, do you see this ironwork? Like, what does it mean? And one of the symbols that stood out in that dream was like the heart shaped symbol that was in the front screen door in the dream. And I was like, okay. So I woke up and I hopped right into my research. I know I got a dream diary, all that. And I got my dream interpretation dictionary, which y'all can never make me hate her. I've lost and worn these books down so many times I'll just buy a new copy. That's how significant this book is in my life and my journey. So, you know, the dream book gives me some nice interpretation. And then I'm like, well, what are these symbols? Anyways, what is it with this symbol? What is it with ironwork? So I'm looking up this ironwork and I learned that these are Adinkra symbols that you can most notably find in the ironwork in architecture in New Orleans. And I was like, oh, okay. So I definitely have seen them around, you know, different places I went. But when I looked it up, it was like, yeah, these are most notable in New Orleans. And I was like, oh, okay. And the heart that I was looking into is called Sankofa. I hope I'm saying it right. And its meaning is to go back and get it. So from my understanding, to rectify things from the past, to take the knowledge that you have now and right some wrong or some misstep in the future, make the future better as a result of, um, you know, wisdom and experience that you have now. So I was like, what in the world is all this? And then also around that time, I started looking into my ancestry results I did years ago. And not even with New Orleans in my mind, I saw that I did have some background from Sierra Leone that I read about their tie to New Orleans. I was like, oh my God. So then, you know, I'm just like, whatever. I'm still having dreams. So my next dream was of my mom with a literal, like, African elder, like, looked like a literal ancestor. And I was like, okay, like she looked content. She didn't seem to be in any kind of trouble in the dream. They were actually watching a parade together. So I was like, okay, there's definitely some messaging trying to get through to me. So after that, I do have another dream, and it's of my mom and her best friend sitting out looking up to the balconies that I saw when I was researching New Orleans in that same ironwork. This is 6 to 7 months before the idea of me even going to New Orleans even surfaces, by the way. So, you know, life goes on. I'm having all these dreams, and I'm like, whatever, you know, I just continue. So I just jump back into my life, and, you know, time is passing. I'm not really thinking much of it. I'm like, that was interesting. You know, just continuing on my spiritual journey day by day. And my best friend's birthday rolls around. So her birthday is in July. So again, this is like 6, 7 months after all those dreams. And when I had told her about those dreams, like prior to that, she was like, oh, you know, my grandfather used to spend a lot of time in New Orleans, and, you know, he's gone for years and years, and he usually has like a yearly trip or whatever. I was like, oh, you know, that's really interesting. You know, again, goes on with life. So we go out to dinner for her birthday, and she's like, I want you to meet my grandfather. And mind you, me and my best friend have almost been friends for like 10 years, and she's only mentioned him. I've never met him in the span of our friendship. So that was even kind of like looking back. So we go to the restaurant, and she's like, oh, I got to run to the restroom, but you can go ahead and introduce yourself. So I walk in, literally, I tell him my name, shake his hand, and he's like, you need to come to New Orleans with us in October. When I tell you this was like the first thing that came out of his mouth when I like walked in the room, he was like, you need to come with us to New Orleans. We have a trip going, we got plenty of space. Please come. Like, and was adamant throughout the dinner, like, "You need to come, you need to come." So I'm like, "Of course, like, I'm down." I don't really know how all the moving pieces is gonna fit in at that time, but I'm like, "Okay." My best friend kept assuring me, like, "Girl, this is pretty much like a free vacation, like, he's gonna take care of all the accommodations, he's gonna get us there, like, you really just need to buy your food and whatever else you wanna do." And I'm like, I can't beat this, not just for like the accommodation of it all, but also just all that symbolism I was coming into. I was like, I have to go. Like I have a curiosity that I need to. So the energy upon arriving was so easy going. I say easy because they have that saying, of it being the big easy down there. But it really is like that. Like, I don't want to say like a lazy type energy, but people are just at ease from what I experienced upon getting there. And like, I just didn't feel that sense of urgency that I feel when I go to bigger cities sometimes. And I just felt like the people, even like at the hotel, like they were chilling. Like there was just no sense of like urgency or aggression or let's get this done, let's get you here. Like everybody's just kind of flowing from what I experienced. So I was like, okay, the weather was pretty good when we got there too. Like everything just felt like lukewarm bath water, like at the perfect temperature. So we get there, we're having a good time instantly, like instantly. Like I literally enjoyed myself from the moment I was there to the moment I left, even when I was just chilling. And I know they say like Southern hospitality, and I'm feeling like it was definitely that. And also, I don't know, like the people there just, I like ease. That's the only word that comes to my mind. Like I had really pleasant interactions. I didn't feel pressured in any of my interactions. I didn't feel rubbed the wrong way. Like it just was not that serious down there. So I love that. So that night we went on Bourbon Street and we literally pretty much stayed on Bourbon Street the whole time. That's kind of why this video is titled Unfinished Business. It's quite literal. But we literally stayed on Bourbon Street most of the time. And the first night there, my friend's grandfather is like, "Oh, put that snake around your neck." And I look and it's like these boys riding around on these hoverboards, these huge snakes. And I don't know, I was just like, okay, I mean, hey, why not? I never really held a snake. Not like that. Like I held like baby snake. And it just felt really comfortable to me. And that picture, they took a picture of me with the snake, and I think it's honestly one of my favorite pictures of myself. Like I will for sure frame that and show my descendants that picture. I think it's really badass, and it's just me. Like that picture is just my personality. I love it. Um, but yeah, then I come more into the knowledge of snake symbolism and how it's tied to a lot of the practices. And I was like, oh my gosh, like even in this depiction, I'll put it here of Marie Laveau. They say there's no true depiction of her, but I thought it was interesting that this one had the snake, which I'm going to do a video about snake symbolism at some point. I just thought it was cool that it was like my crowning of my first night on Bourbon Street. Even some of the people of New Orleans were kind of serpent like in their eyes and other features. And particularly the men there, they have a serpent like way about them. Like even in their approach, like they're very tempting. They're really smooth with their talk, and I don't know. Like I could see how y'all be getting caught up down. It's just a different kind of game. They just got a different kind of game down there, and I like the accent too. But yeah, like even when you be like disregarding them, like they be hollering behind you talking about some comeback, I love you. Like also the jazz was out of this world. I love jazz. I'm a secret student of jazz. I'm trying to be more loud about it. And to experience those sounds in real time, I just don't even have a word for it. It's like it's euphoric. It's literally it's like my name. It's euphoric. Like it takes you to another place. I really enjoyed just walking the streets and being able to take those sounds in, but also just the abundance of live Black artistry that you have easy access to, just jumping in and out of these joints on Bourbon Street. I mean, you can literally get a mix of everything. I mean, there's the more modern songs and covers they're doing, and then there's, the classics that you can really get in there and just spend some time with some very talented musicians and vocalists. And it feels really intimate. It feels really intimate. Like every music space I went into, I mean, everybody was vibed up. They're either full out dancing or they're mostly full out dancing. Um, I didn't think I've seen anything like it. I mean, you go to bigger cities and they have live shows and stuff, but a scenario where, I mean, you can literally hop out of one joint and go next door to the next one, just keep going, literally keep going. I had never seen nothing like that, and I appreciated it so much. So the other aspect of it is the unfinished business, but I'm gonna tie it all together from what I was mentioning at the top of the video. So the next aspect of this video is the unfinished business. So, like I said, I barely left Bourbon Street. I was so turned up, and I had one day I had to spend just solely recovering. I lost a little bit of time on a day that I actually planned to like branch out and explore. So it was like, hey, I'm just gonna enjoy where I'm at. But once I got home and I looked back, like I learned about Congo Square and the cemeteries and just other landmarks that I wasn't aware of or didn't realize how close I was to them. I was like, what in the world? Like, I have to come back. Like, I feel like if anything, I was meant to just get like a taste so that I would come back and spend more time. Maybe I'll spend a more lengthy amount of time. Maybe I'll move there. You just never know what goes on. And I feel like, in the same way that my ancestors wanted me to go and made a way completely for me to go and experience that, if I'm meant to go back, they'll take me back, they'll bring me back. So I don't know. I had a great time. I learned a lot about myself. I don't know. I had a great time. I loved experiencing this new place with such rich history and just such a potent energy within it and surrounding it. I was happy to kind of delve into that. And I will be back. Like, my interest, if anything, was just sparked to a much higher, like, explosive degree. So, one thing I did take away was this inspiration towards a New Orleans series. You can kind of see it behind me. That's like the smaller series. I'll put it here too. So, I've started that, and I'm actually going to do two bigger pieces, one centered around Congo Square and the other is going to be a celebration of jazz. So I'm excited to get those pieces going. And also, weirdly enough, I find this vase with the saint symbol like a week, not even a week after I get back home to my home in my local Goodwill. I find this for like $3. So I reworked it. This is the outcome. But again, I was like, here we go. So, yes, the other aspect of the unfinished business is, since I've been back, I have also been researching a lot of the practices. And it's interesting to me because I feel like, even being somewhat, I would almost say, alienated from like our native practices, being someone that's in West Virginia and doesn't have a lot of access to, my ancestry beyond like slavery. The other aspect of the unfinished business is that once I got back, I also researched more about the practices, and I had a whole night where I just researched, and I was enlightened in a way that was, I had to reflect on the way I've allowed myself to be conditioned and to view a lot of like Native African spirituality, and the ways in which it kind of prevented me from coming into this knowledge of all these practices and their true power. Um, I've always still had some interest in it, whether the people around me demonized it or made me feel weird for being that way or for having those interests. I still maintained that I was still, tinker in it. I'm saying all that to say it's funny to me that not really having any direct access to anyone that, practiced root work, it's funny that it still made its way to me. Like these are things that I inherently was always interested in or inherently always dabbled in or researched on my own, like as a kid and even just, growing up and getting older. So I feel like that's part of my unfinished business. I want to get more enlightened on how to strengthen my personal practices. So thank you all for watching. If you all want to see more of like a play by play, like I said, it's on my TikTok. And yes, please let me know if y'all had any experiences in New Orleans or, learning more about these practices, symbolism, anything like that. I would love to know. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.